Hello, everyone. We had a little bit of an excitement trying to get everyone on, but we're good now, and we are so excited to have you here today. I'm Jody Smith, your Director of Strategic Alliances here at WomenHeart, and I'm delighted to be able to do this live in honor of Mother's Day, and I have two lovely ladies here to do it with me. For those of you who are unfamiliar with WomenHeart, we are the leading national patient centered organization solely focused on supporting, educating, and advocating for women living with and at risk of heart disease. We are again hosting this conversation in honor of Mother's Day, where it's a time to reflect on relationships, experiences, and stories that shape us. Today, I'm really pleased to be joined by two Women Heart champions, a mother and daughter pair, joining us from all the way from sunny Georgia. We have Kimbrooke Pavlich and Aidan Pavlich. Kimbrooke actually became a Women Heart champion in 2024, and Aidan just finished the virtual champion training, which just ended. We just had the graduation last week. So we are really excited to have her here as a Woman Heart champion.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
very excited to be here.
yeah, well, thank you both, ladies. So we're going to jump into the conversation and learn more about your story. I almost said y'all's story because I live in Richmond, Virginia, but
We
and
speak y'all. We do y'all.
you do, y'all,
Oh, absolutely.
and about what Mother's Day means to you guys. So could you each just really briefly introduce yourself and your connection to Woman Heart, first of all?
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Kimbrooke Pavlich. I go by Kimbrooke, and I had an interaction with my cardiologist right after my open heart surgery. It was actually 2 years ago this week. I had open heart surgery, and my cardiologist, Gina Lundberg, um, finished diagnosing me. I got the initial diagnosis the prior year of FH, familial hypercholesterolemia, which is a genetic disorder that creates bad cholesterol. So no matter what I eat, how much I exercise, how many prayers I say, it does not impact my cholesterol. And she also diagnosed me with LP little a, which is a separate genetic cholesterol disorder. And after my open heart surgery, she recommended that I get in touch with Women Heart and also with another organization that supports FH. And I actually knew Jody uh, for, I'm not going to say how many years, but back in
A
our
long
college days.
time.
Yeah. And reached out to her, and she was the first person that actually connected with me and really was present with how I was feeling after the surgery and encouraged me to become an advocate. So I became an advocate 6 months after my surgery.
Yeah.
So my story kind of
Introduce
starts.
yourself.
Yeah, my name is Aidan Pavlich. I'm her daughter. So I am a college student at the University of North Georgia, just a little bit north of where we are right now. And my story started with my mom. So she had her aortic valve replaced in the spring of 2023. Four? Nope, it was three because that's when I left for Spain. And nope, it was 2024. You're right. Look at that. And I was literally a few weeks after she had her surgery, I was leaving the country for 5 weeks. And when I got back, she became involved with Women Heart and the AFH Foundation. And I also had familiar hypercholesterolemia. And I wanted to make sure that not only could I make sure that I was getting the proper preventative care, but was also making sure that I was involved in any kind of research that would make sure that my mom didn't have to go through any other horrific procedures or any other cardiovascular events.
Yeah, well, it's amazing how both of you took an experience which I know was extremely difficult. And I remember your surgery, Kimbrook, and all that went with it and how scary that was. and you decided to do something with it and make a difference for so many women around the nation. So I just want to thank you for that. It's amazing work, and it's not easy to do. You could choose a lot of different paths, but becoming a Women Heart champion, it really helps countless other women like you all. So my next question is going to be kind of overarching question. What special meaning does Mother's Day have to you this year, both of each of you being a mother and a daughter, considering all you've been through?
Well, for me, being a mother, I've always been very intentional about preparing my girls. She's a twin. Preparing my girls for life, helping them learn how to communicate well, advocate for themselves, not just in their health, but in all areas of their life. And this Mother's Day, each of my girls has been given the gift of some genetic disorders from me. And they have learned how to not only support me in my journey, but recognize what their health journey looks like, own it, and become advocates for both of us. So Aidan has really led the way. She jumped into the research a couple of years ago. She one time at cardiac rehab, she sat beside me. We were sitting with a pharmacist who was talking about different cardiac drugs, pharmaceuticals, and she sat with her little computer beside me, and she turned to look at me and she said, "I believe that you're getting too high of a dose." And so for Mother's Day, this is really about me watching her fly, her taking ownership of her own health care, and then taking it beyond what she can do for me. She didn't become an advocate because I asked her to. She became an advocate after we went to Washington, D.C. this year to advocate on Capitol Hill. And there is a bill called the Safe Step Act that we are trying to get passed. And it very specifically impacts her. And I think that I won't speak for her, but for having my daughter there beside me, that's the second year I've done this, having her beside me and making it be a real bill with a real face, like this is really going to impact her. That's what Mother's Day is for me, is about creating a future for them.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Kimbrooke. And the Safe Step Act is getting more and more and more co-sponsors. So let's hope we get it through and people like Aidan don't have to fail on a drug that doesn't work for them or has harmful side effects before
Well,
they get the drug they need.
it's excellent news. And while we were in Washington D.C., our cardiologist Gina Lundberg was awarded the Winger Award for
Yay!
cardiology. And part of the reason was some white papers that she had written on my case. And I actually talked to her while we were at the Winger Awards and said, "Hey, we're really pushing for this safe step because Aidan still is not eligible for PCSK9 inhibitors, and that's a game changer for people with FH." And so,
So,
Mother's Day for you.
yeah.
Mother's Day is, well, when I was a kid, it was the day that came around and, you had to go burn some pancakes first. It was extra important that they were a little bit crispy.
Of
And
course.
you'd make some eggs, you'd get some orange juice. We never had orange juice in the house. We always had to send my dad out to get some. And we would clamber clumsily into my mother's bed with a giant tray of food, set it down, and we'd sit beside her, breakfast in bed. And then we would spend the rest of the day following her around like little ducklings, being like, "What can we do?
And
What
you
can we
ate
do?"
the food.
Yeah, that was the most
You ate
important
the
part.
breakfast.
It wasn't her breakfast. That was actually my breakfast. That we were giving
I
to
got
her.
to watch.
She got to watch, yeah. And so as I've gotten older, Mother's Day has slowly morphed from this very childlike and innocent celebration of mothers into kind of using myself and the accomplishments that I've done as a reflection and as a almost homage to what my mother, the skills and the opportunities that my mother has allowed me and has helped me get to. and kind of standing back and saying, here's what I've done. So thank you to my mom. Very specifically, look at all the incredible things I'm doing, and it is all because of my mom.
Yeah, Aidan, you both embody empowerment, but just to see all you've done in the short time I've known you, I mean, I've known you through your mom for a very long time, but getting to know you has been such an honor. And you embody empowerment. That's what we want for every woman, whether they're a Woman Heart champion or not. So I just have a lot of kudos for you for all of that. Um, Back to you, Aidan. So when your mom has heart disease,
Mhm.
um, it changes things in your house,
Absolutely.
and it changes things with how you feel and how you act. And it must have been so scary to have to go overseas, like right after your mom's surgery as well. Can you describe a little about how that impacted you and how your own diagnosis also affected you?
So to start off, my mom was saying it's been 2 years to the week since her last heart surgery, her first heart surgery. And unfortunately, this is finals week for me. I have final projects due. I'm about to go take a test tomorrow. I'm about to do several large presentations. And so, not only was 2 years ago one of the most stressful surgeries in my family unit, but I was also extremely preoccupied with different classes that I was taking. And I had a finance, it was actually accounting one. It was my very first accounting class, and I failed the final. Like, I got a 49 on it. Like, I really and truly failed it. And the first thing that I did, it was right before my mom went into surgery. And the first thing that she did is she held me. She was so worried about her own health, medical health. And the first thing that she did, even though she was so scared, was comfort me.
Aw.
And when she finally got out of surgery, I wasn't able to go and comfort her. She was in the ICU unit and we were not allowed in. And moving past that, in the following weeks, she was so frail and was in so much pain. And we would go to the hospital, but my mother wanted to limit that as much as possible because open heart surgery is gruesome. And it is not a pretty sight in any way. Like, you walk up to your loved one and they look dead. Like, they look dead. There's tubes and wires and all kinds of electrodes coming out of them, and you're just like, that cannot possibly be a human being that I know. And then I had to worry about packing for my first ever study abroad trip I'd ever gone on, and figuring out what to pack, how was the weather, getting ready for another round of schooling. And also the knowledge that I was about to leave my mother, who was critically ill, alone. And it was me and my twin sister that were both leaving at the same time. And so that just left her with my father, who, while is extremely competent, medical stuff is not his forte. That is something that both me and my sister have had to become very well versed in, because we wouldn't want my mom to be without some kind of advocacy team. And while she is perfectly and very competent about advocating for herself, when you can't even lay down flat and close your eyes for 3 hours to get enough sleep to be functional without feeling like your chest is about to melt through the rest of your body, how can you advocate for yourself in a way that's effective? And so this this idea of leaving her, first of all, I was really excited to go study abroad, but it was tinged with this, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? My mom is sick. I'm going to leave her. I'm going to leave my sick mom alone for 5 weeks and then just pray that my dad is able to help her in the ways that she needs. And, we are so fortunate that we had family friends who were able to come in and be my mother's emotional support network and make sure that she did not only have that advocacy team, but those shoulders to cry on it and just be sad and not be expected to hold up the weight of the family. So,
So I think it's important to note here that My surgery was a huge success. They were able to replace my aortic valve and enlarge my aortic because the condition that I have does not have any treatment. And so they know that I am going to need future surgeries. But there was a major complication after my surgery, which extended my recovery for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, going a little further there, Kimbrooke, you are a mom living with heart disease, and you are a mom of a daughter diagnosed with heart disease. So can you talk a little bit more about that and what that has meant in your life?
Because my daughter's heart disease is genetic and she inherited it from me, that was devastating. It was devastating as a mother who gave her life to know that I have harmed her in some way. Not intentionally, definitely not intentionally, but that somehow my body didn't just fail me, it failed my daughter. And that motivated me to become an advocate. Anything that I can do to put myself into a position to further science in her name, I will do. I'm currently in a clinical trial. We share the same cardiologist, so that we are in the same registry. We do a lot. We offer our medical information up for a lot of research so that other families can benefit from us. And as a mother, it was terrifying at the beginning when she got her diagnosis and didn't really accept it. But it was through some of the advocacy and the medical summits that we attended that she had a conversation with another mother of twins who had lost her 20-year-old son, and they did and had the same condition that Aidan had. And so I think that as a mother, it's not just about trying to take care of them. It is about introducing them to science and to knowledge and to truly advocacy, because if that other mother had not been willing to advocate for this condition, my daughter would not have taken her condition seriously. And because of her work through WomenHeart, Aidan has been able to advocate with her cardiologist and say, I want a different protocol. And so she's now, with the exception of the PCSK9 inhibitor, she's on the same protocol that I'm on. So as a mother, it really, it covers every emotion, shame, guilt, hopelessness, hope, confidence, joy, passion, and really being very, very proud.
Yeah. So, it's always hard to manage different roles in a family and be living with heart disease, especially where there is, genetic heart disease in the family. And so I think I have two things for you, Aidan, if you can answer them. One is, what do you want your mom to know about having a genetic condition? And then the second thing is, what inspired you to become a WomenHeart champion?
So I'll go ahead and start with what inspired me to be a WomenHeart champion, because
That's easier.
that's easier, yeah. I remember it was before my mom's open heart surgery, about a year prior. I had read a book, and I forget the title of it. It's Eve. It's called Eve. And it was this incredibly fascinating book on the history of women and the genetic and biological systems that follow, and where they came from, why they work, how they work. And one of the things that was so terrifying to me was the lack of knowledge on any kind of female system, to the point where we were not even studied, we weren't even allowed to be studied until around the 70s. there were FDA protocols that prohibited, and the exact wording was women of childbearing potential from participating in clinical studies. And it wasn't like we were not encouraged. None of the research was even remotely compatible with us. They assumed we were smaller versions of men. And as we now know, that is not true. We have very different systems. We process things differently. We metabolize things different. We eliminate different chemical compounds from our systems differently. We're just biologically different. And I was horrified. And so for one of my classes, I did a presentation on gendered pharmacology. And then I took that research and I presented it at multiple different conferences all around Georgia. And I then became even more involved when my mother became impacted by my research. And when we found the Family Heart Foundation, I was like, perfect. They can help my mom. And then I realized that they didn't focus on women. They were very much focused on the genetic condition. And I was like, okay, but you can't just study men. That's not how this works. You can't just study half the population and say that's the total. And every single time I would bring it up, it was kind of, oh, well, that's kind of outside of our scope. I'm like, no, it's not. We are your scope. Women are half of your scope. This is not. And I was enraged. And so when my mom was like, hey, there's WomenHeart, I was like, bingo, found it, got it. And I decided that I was going to do whatever I could to help an organization whose priority is the populations that historically have not been represented in the medical studies and in clinical trials. And the way that I did that was I did an internship with you all in the fall of 2025. I created a linguistically relevant Spanish program. That way, not only can women access it, but women from the Spanish speaking and Hispanic communities who are oftentimes not as able to access important information about cardiovascular health have access to it from an organization that is making sure that women know. And my interest and my drive to become a WomenHeart champion was only further kind of cemented when I went with you all to Washington, D.C. And I realized how many people in our government have no idea about this huge gap, whether it be in the policies that dictate how we run clinical trials, whether it's in the actual funding available to do trials and develop medicine and develop studies that help women. And so all of this just kind of funneled me further and further and further into I need to get involved. And answering the first question, the thing that I would want my mom to know is that all of the stuff that I have done in order to help women and that has funneled me to working with WomenHeart and the Family Heart Foundation isn't only because I have a genetic condition that was passed on through my mother, but was also because of her. And because I don't want her to have to live in a world where she doesn't get the help that she needs. And so what I would want her to know about me living with this particular genetic condition is that if I can use it to give myself drive and to help the scientific community and help raise awareness, then I'm okay with it.
Well, I mean, that's so amazing, Aidan. I feel like I could listen to you all day. We do have to ask one final question and close up, but I think especially people like the two of you doing the wonderful work with Family Heart Foundation, which does so much good work, and then also working with WomenHeart. I think that combination is very powerful. Um, and so we do have to end though. So I'm going to let you pick the last question of two questions. Okay. So you can choose what gives you hope moving forward, or what's one thing you want people to take away from your story, just very briefly.
I think one of the things that I would really like women to take away from my story in particular is that our society tells us to ignore our bodies. Um, throughout our life, you're told it's just menstrual pain, it's just pregnancy pain, it's just birth pain, it's just hormones, it's just menopause. It's just. And I will confess that I was living with chest pain for a very long time. And I chalked it up to stress, I chalked it up to anxiety, um, being exhausted. Our society normalizes being run down and tired and in pain. And it's really, really important to listen to your body. And you're the only one who lives in your body. And so once you recognize that there is something wrong with your body, don't let anybody tell you that there's not. Fire your doctor if you need to. Fire the ER if you need to. Demand treatment. Um, Had I not demanded my echo, I probably would not have made it. If I had not requested um, a very specific test in the ER after my open heart surgery, I probably would not have made it. So it's really important to know your body, and not to just ignore the pain.
Yeah, the thing that I would want people to take away from my story is that you don't necessarily need to have some kind of major cardiac event to act as a catalyst for you to want to cause change. It could
Mm.
be you be walking across the street and see a sign that says heart disease is the number one killer in women, and less than 2% of all funding goes specifically towards women, and you go, that's not okay. That could be your catalyst, and that is perfectly okay. And working with organizations where there are a lot of people who have these absolutely terrifying and crazy stories doesn't mean that your catalyst is any less impactful or will do any less to help you drive change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such an important point. A lot of people say, oh, my story's not so bad. And you're like, it's your story. Your story. The worst type of heart disease is the one you have. Just,
Yes.
right? Honor that and don't be afraid to share your story. You never know who it can help. So I'm just so delighted to have had you guys here today and get to talk to you. It was really wonderful to be here with you both. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for allowing us to have a voice.
Yeah, well, you guys have a great voice. And thank you all of you out there who are listening. We really appreciate that. We will be having in the future more conversations like these where people are sharing their stories. So please stay tuned in honor of Mother's Day as we recognize and uplift all living with and at risk of heart disease. Thank you so much again, and we hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.